Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Deadly. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. We're so very excited and absolutely honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, Player FM, Audible, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really excited. First guest today, Andrew Keenan-Bolger. He is here to celebrate Limelight, his new YA title. Later in the show, Devin Torres will be here to celebrate his new picture book, Freddie the Frog. Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the books by Dr. Peter Cotton. In particular, When Fred the Snake Goes to School. What happens when your best friend is a snake and he wants to go to school with you? After a happy summer full of fun and friendship, Fred the Snake decides he's ready for his next big adventure, school. But when Fred slithers into the classroom, students, well, they're not so sure. A snake in school? And when Fred the Snake goes to school, kids discover what happens when we give someone new a chance. Fred may look a little bit different, but he quickly wins everyone over by being kind, playful, and surprisingly helpful. He twists himself into a jump rope. He curls up into a soccer goal. And before long, the class realizes something very important. Sometimes the friend you're unsure about becomes the one you can't imagine school without. This award-winning book received the Mom's Gold Award and glowing 5-star reviews from readers' favorite and Goodreads, calling it an enjoyable story to read aloud at home or in the classroom. Written by Dr. Peter Cotton, who we loved having on Reading with Your Kids. This is the second book in the delightful Fred the Snake series. It's a joyful reminder that kindness builds trust, differences can be strengths, and school is always better when somebody feels welcome. Join us right now from Brooklyn in New York City. Our guest is here today to celebrate his new YA title. It's called Limelight. Please welcome to the show, Andrew Keenan-Bolger. Andrew, how are you?
Hey, Jed, I'm doing great. It's very cold in New York City right now.
Boy, it is. I was just speaking to somebody in Paris, and they were saying, "Oh, the weather's miserable. It's rainy and it's gray, and it's and I said, well, it's been like single digits here in Boston since we got 2 feet of snow last week. Same in New York City, so I think we got them beat."
I agree. Also, it's good weather to curl up with a book, so it's hard to complain.
And Limelight would be a great book to curl up with. Tell us. I read in the notes that the main character is named Danny, and that the only thing standing between Danny and his dream is everything.
Yeah, exactly. So Limelight is a young adult novel. It's set in New York City in the year 1996. And Danny is a shy kid from Staten Island who lands a spot at the prestigious LaGuardia High School, which is the performing arts school in New York. And yeah, he suddenly kind of has to figure out who he is and where he belongs.
It's in, that whole idea of everything that we want, everything is standing between us and what we want. I think almost every kid going into high school kind of feels that way.
Oh, certainly. I feel like I love reading coming of age novels, and I enjoyed writing it in part because you just get to step into a character that there's a real tension of trying to fit in and trying to be yourself. And I think no time is more ripe for that than when you're a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the hardest things is while we're sitting there thinking, well, I don't know anything, I don't have any skills, everything's against me, we think that everybody else has it all down pat and they know it all. And we don't realize that none of us know anything.
We're all trying our best, but yeah, oof. I would not go back to my high school years if you paid me.
Yeah, yeah. So what inspired the character of Danny in the book?
So I moved to New York City in 1996 after being cast in my first Broadway show, because I'm an actor as well, and I was a child actor. And that version of the city, it never left me. I feel it in like such a sensory way, just like the noise and the chaos of it all, and also the feeling that the city was really kind of shifting under my feet. It was a time when the city was undergoing a great transformation where a lot of the nightlife and like the kind of sleazy, gritty New York was being shut down and replaced with a more sanitized version. And it just felt like a really fascinating time to write about. It's a queer coming of age story, and I am always interested in talking, especially with my friends who are about a generation older than me, what it was like to be gay or queer at that time in New York. And because so much of the history from that era is incomplete, either because it was ignored or because so many of these stories were lost through the AIDS epidemic. But starting in like 1996, the year that my book is written, it's like the year that the cocktail was invented and people were getting sort of a new lease on life. And it just felt like an incredible tension, an incredible shifting moment in the world. And I felt like, especially for any of my young queer readers out there, it's just a part of history that is both really fascinating and really important and really shape the groundwork of what it is like to be in this community today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What was it like for you being a child actor at that time?
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, in many ways, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and of stepping out of my car in New York City the first time I got there to audition for a Broadway show, it really was like Dorothy stepping out of her sepia world into this like technicolor swirling atmosphere of Times Square in the 90s. So just like the overstimulation and excitement and the pulse and electricity of the city was really incredible. But then also I was so incredibly lucky that I had this real passion for acting and that my parents kind of pulled that thread and allowed me to really explore it to the biggest stage in the world, like the Broadway stage. So getting to do all that starting at the age of 10 and basically all throughout my teenage years, it was just really incredible. And I met so many amazing people and so many self-actualized adults who were living in New York and were pursuing their passions. It really, really influenced me and made writing this book like just so meaningful to kind of re-examine my own history and just the history of the city and the history of theater at that time. And, just all of it.
Yeah. How much of you can we find in Danny?
It's funny, I've written 3 other books, where the protagonist was very much me. I had no trouble kind of accessing who, my previous books were and who that protagonist was as a character. Danny in many ways is not like me. I wanted to write a character, who is just kind of getting started in the theater world, but is not the obvious star. He's very shy. He's very insecure. He comes from very much a broken home. So he's very guarded in how he deals with people and, who he is and trying to just understand, his identity and, who he wants to be in this world. So I luckily feel like when I was younger, when I was probably Danny's age, I had a lot more confidence, in part because I was working professionally and had that sort of feedback loop from getting to be on stage in having people applaud for you. So I was much more interested in writing about someone who is kind of more face pressed to the glass, more on the outside looking in. Just because I felt like that represents a whole lot of teens, because most teenagers do not have their act together when they're that age. They are really, you were kind of, I feel like just treading water at that point. And that to me felt like, at this point in my life, a more interesting character to write.
Yeah. As somebody who was very successful at that age, how difficult was it for you to put yourself and see the world through Danny's eyes, through the lens of, the nose pressed up against the glass?
Yeah. Well, I think anyone who has spent any time in theater, even at the top of your game, you face daily rejection. You are constantly told no. Very rarely are you given an opportunity where you hear yes. It is so many auditions that you don't end up getting. And so I very much do relate to walking into a room feeling like you were less prepared, feeling like the people there are more attractive than you, or can sing higher than you, or have more credits than you, and feeling like you don't belong. And I even remember when I was a teenager, even though I was performing and getting to be on Broadway, I always felt like I was one mistake away from being found out or being called a fraud. I very much dealt with imposter syndrome, basically the older and older I got. And that is something that really has never gone away. So it's really trying to write into that space and just trying to put my feelings onto a character who is maybe in a different circumstance, but try and just think of what is honest and what is true and what real struggles teenagers are facing, and trying to make sense out of all of that for my readers.
Yeah. Tell me, authors often tell me that they're surprised at something their characters say or does as the story unwinds. Was there anything that surprised you that Danny said or did?
Yeah, this is not, it is a very funny story. Like, it's certainly a comedy. There's a lot of kind of hilarious, like, situations that these kids get themselves into in this friend group, but it is pretty, I would say it's rather gritty. It's tender, but it's gritty. And, he grew up with a lot of kind of toxic masculine depictions in his house and in his old high school. And, he's really been taught that, like, softness is dangerous. And, so he behaves in ways that I hope that my readers really judge. And, it is because of the world that he is growing up in that he certainly says things, and he is hurtful to people, and he makes a lot of mistakes. And, I got encouragement from my editors to not run away from the darkness, to not try and coat anything in nostalgia goggles. I mean, the 90s, it was a tough time to be growing up, I think, especially with anyone who is struggling with any kind of identity questions when it comes to, like, gender or sexuality. And there was a lot of racism, there was a lot of homophobia, there's a lot of misogyny. And I just wanted to really be honest about that time and not be scared to write a lot of the darkness of that period and the darkness of that character. So yeah, there's plenty of things that would surprise me where I would write something and I'm like, I really think he would not react positively in a way that Andrew, sitting 30 years in the future, would probably react.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Danny, according to my notes, grows up in Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not an expert when it comes to New York City or Brooklyn or Manhattan, but I do know that Staten Island is very much different than Brooklyn and Manhattan. And how does that play into the story?
Yeah, I felt like it was, it built into the metaphor of sort of being on the outside looking in. Staten Island, while a part of New York City, I mean, it's literally separated by a huge harbor and a river, and it is culturally very different. I was lucky enough to have spent a lot of time there. Some of my friends, one of my exes is from Staten Island, and I got to spend time with his family there and also interview folks who grew up there. And I just felt like it was very interesting. I know from like two of the interviews that I did of people who grew up in Staten Island and never visited Manhattan until they were teenagers, even though it was just a free ferry ride across the harbor to get there. To me, that felt just fascinating. And I felt like it would be so interesting to write a character who has this whole world just literally across the river, and is a place that he so desperately wants to be, but also has not figured out how he belongs and doesn't feel like he fits in. And so it felt like kind of a grand metaphor, and also just an interesting kind of two worlds to write a character in, that he has to navigate both kind of on a daily basis, going to school in Manhattan and coming home to Staten Island.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about being personally a successful child actor. 10 is pretty young to be getting on stage, and you have certainly experienced a lot of success, not only on Broadway, but in TV and film, and you're creating films. I hear so many stories about kids who get into showbiz at a very young age, kind of going off the rails.
Oh, yeah.
And having a very difficult time becoming a well-adjusted adult, or even making it to adulthood. How did you jump over those hurdles and arrive at this healthy place that you're at now?
Yeah, you know, it is a stereotype that exists for a reason, and I certainly grew up around it, where there were lots of kids who I worked with or who would audition alongside who were truly doing it, I think because their parents were living vicariously through them or were putting pressure on them. And I feel like the only reason that I am still interested in pursuing this art form is because I had parents who were supportive but very hands-off. I never really remember them coaching me or directing me. They would drive me to rehearsals and drop me off at auditions, but I never felt pressure to book work. And they had their own lives. They were, my dad was a city planner. My mom was a teacher. Their careers meant a lot to them, and their passions meant a lot to them. And they were not counting on me to make rent payments. And, I feel really lucky that they gave me that support, but also never made me feel bad if an audition went poorly or I didn't get a job, or if I wanted to like throw the towel in and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I never felt like there was any pressure to keep going.
Yeah. You obviously are telling stories in many different mediums in different ways. Do you have a favorite way to tell stories?
It's funny. I always a lot of the work that I do, it kind of comes back to theater. Either it's the subject matter. This is my fourth book that is not about theater, but certainly, theater plays a little bit of a backdrop to. And I think even if I'm not writing about theater, I am so informed by it. And it feels surprisingly natural to work in other mediums, either in directing or writing, in part because I have spent my whole life in rehearsal rooms thinking about structure and rhythm and character and entrances and exits, and really how like ensembles can move along a scene. So I think especially writing young adult novels, it lets me use the theatrical muscle just in a new form. Like I am able to have done my 10,000 hours of hearing good dialogue and bad dialogue and know which ones feel alive and which scenes you can kind of play with tension and which have release, and just how to really world build. I think being an actor at a young age just my mind has always thought in these kind of realms, both on stage and off stage. And, yeah, so it's regardless of if I am, writing or directing or performing, it all kind of is, it is all same part of the same ecosystem, I think.
Yeah. You were mentioning how supportive your parents were. We encourage the Reading with Your Kids podcast, all about reading. And people, when they hear that, they think, oh, yeah, read a picture book, you curl up on the couch with your kids. I'm not thinking that a lot of families are going to curl up on the couch to read Limelight together, although I do know parents who read aloud with their teens. But we encourage families to continue to co-read, maybe listen to an audiobook together. If there's a family out there that's co-reading Limelight, what kind of conversations do you think they might be able to have on the way to an audition or soccer or ballet?
Yeah, it's funny. I grew up, I think in part because I took so many road trips to New York. I was a huge audiobook family. We listened to just a ton of books together. And what I really appreciated was my parents we would kind of alternate between reading kids' books, and they would play books that they wanted to read, and I would get to kind of tune in on. And I think what is great, and what I especially love about just the young adult genre, is that it does not shy away from tough topics. I think that there's a idea that kids need to be sheltered and teens need to only read stuff that was written exactly for their age group. But I think when you were growing up, teenagers, we live a lot of realities. I think especially in today's world, there are a lot of challenging things that you have to navigate. And I think books are some of the best places to open up discussion, and also for kids to feel seen. I'm writing, a queer protagonist, and I think for a lot of kids, books can often provide language before real life does. I feel like reading kind of offers you a practice where you get to imagine choices and relationships and futures, especially when the world around you is sort of narrowing what you believe you're allowed to be. And I think books are often a great place to open up discussions about representation. Representation, I don't think it solves everything, but it can crack open what feels possible. And I hope that I encourage also a lot of adults to read this book as well, just because I think you will get another layer having the distance between your adolescence and now, where it can hopefully help you make sense of your own teenage years. And if you have kids, to sort of be able to talk about that time period, talk about identity, talk about maybe the darker things that come along in this book, stuff like violence. And I think conversation is so important with parents, and books can be one of the best ways to access difficult topics to bridge with your kids.
Yeah. So much easier to talk about a book, talk about a situation that's going on in a book, as opposed to sitting down and saying, son, daughter, we have to have a talk.
Oh, yeah. And kids want their own privacy, too. They want their own life. And it's sometimes hard to talk about what they have going on at school or people they might have crushes on. But it is sometimes easier to just have that remove and talk about characters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everything we do in life adds to us, changes us a little bit. How did writing Limelight change you?
I feel like I grew to understand myself a lot. One of the reasons I got into theater is because of the community aspect of it. Theater is incredibly collaborative, not just with your castmates and with directors, but also with the front of house people at the theater, all the backstage crew, all the designers. Whereas writing is very much a solitary task. It was a lot of time spent with my own thoughts, staring at a blank screen, and it kind of forced me to re-examine that moment in my life and make sense out of it. And I do feel like I learned a lot about myself, and also just this was the first book that I wrote by myself, that I don't share a co-author credit with. And basically it gave me tremendous self-confidence to be able to start from nothing and end up selling it and then getting it published. It is a real feather in my cap in terms of what I thought I could do. I never set out to be an author when I went to college. It was a random path that I did not think was on my map, and something that has given me just real purpose in my life, and has just reminded me that sometimes unexpected things are going to crop up and they're going to totally change your whole world for the better.
Yeah. So you've achieved success on Broadway, TVs, movies, as a filmmaker, now as an author. What's the next mountain you're looking to climb?
Yeah, I would love, love, love to turn Limelight into some other kind of intellectual property, whether it be a TV show or a film. I think it is such a cinematic story and such a just vibrant time period that I feel like has not been depicted enough on film. So I would love to turn Limelight into something. If there are any producers out there listening, my inbox is open. Yeah, I'd love to write a screenplay of it.
That would be great. It's funny. I'm seeing these things on social media now of young people. If they have a peer that was born in 19, whatever, if they've 19 starts your birthday, the year you, they think, oh, that's dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
Well, someone who was born in the middle of the 19th, I'm very ancient, but yeah, that must be a little weird for a young person like you. All of a sudden, the younger kids looking at you like you're an old man like me.
Oh, completely. I mean, when I ended up selling Limelight to Penguin Random House and was informed that it was going to be classified as historical fiction, I almost screamed out loud, where I was like, this can't be history because I lived it. History is like the Civil War. So it was a great surprise, but also, yeah, of course, if you are a teenager reading a book about the 1990s, that could not feel like more ancient history than what it truly is. So, yes, I'm sitting comfortably in a place of, I have a lot of history and perspective.
There you go. Hey, tell us where we can go to find out more about Limelight and find out more about you, and then maybe where a contact button might be so that producer that's listening can chat you. Oh, up.
Sure. I'm a huge social media person. You can always hit me up on Instagram at Keenan-Bolger, which is my last name, but like a blogger. And yeah, you can pick up Limelight anywhere books are sold. If you so happen to want to go to your independent bookstore, I would totally recommend that, just because I really love indie bookstores. If they are not currently carrying it, it's do me a favor and request it. Not just for you, but for other people maybe in your hometown who might be interested in it as well. Or always check out your local library. I was a huge library kid, always had a stack of books, and yeah, it's just a great place to be.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Limelight. It is the YA title from our guest, Andrew Keenan-Bolger. Hey, Andrew, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade, that's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger. And it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. Hey, my friends, you know one of my favorite parts of the day is story time. There's just something magical about snuggling up with your kids, opening a great book, and escaping into an adventure together. And let me tell you, that moment becomes even more magical when you're curled up in the softest, coziest bedding you've ever felt. That's why I'm so excited that CozyEarth.com is supporting Reading with Your Kids. Their bamboo sheets, comforters, and pajamas are unbelievably soft, naturally breathable, and temperature regulating, which means no more sweaty nights or chilly toes. Right now, Cozy Earth is offering Reading with Your Kids listeners an unbelievable and exclusive 41% off their entire site. That's right, you heard me right, 41% off. So go ahead, create your own cozy reading nook, wrap yourself and your kids up in something comfy, grab your favorite bedtime book, and turn story time into the best part of your day. Head on over to CozyEarth.com and use the promo code READ at checkout to save 41%. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Hartford in Connecticut. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new debut picture book. It's called Freddy the Frog. Please welcome to the show, Devin Torres. Devin, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Deadly. I appreciate it.
Delighted that you're on. Tell us about Freddy the Frog, please.
Yeah, so Freddy the Frog, I'll show the book here.
Yeah.
It's about a frog. He has a very positive and jumpy attitude about life. He's very thrilled to do a lot of things. His attitude most of the time is, hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. Oh, you're going to come follow me? Okay, we'll go together, you know? So he's always taking charge, always interested in doing something, very much a leader. Doesn't care if he's followed. He's always going to be doing his own thing. And if you follow along, great. You know, that's his attitude. The point of the book, though, is it's about Freddy showing that confidence being a kid. You know, we're in a time where tablets and phones kind of try to take over, you know, and I get it. There's a lot of stuff going on. But in this story, as I was building it and writing it, I thought back when I was a kid, and I remember those great moments where you meet random kids and you're at a playground and you're just having a blast doing all sorts of things. You know, you're making up games on the fly, and that's something that I kind of wanted to bring forth for the newer generation of children so that maybe they don't get that aspect of having fun and play at the playground. Freddy the Frog is to show you what was before and what can still be, and have fun reading it. You know, it's a rhyming book. It completely rhymes. There's a rhythm to it. You know, an example would be, you know, out from under a special log, a boy came out named Freddy the Frog. And that's how it kind of reads. It's an easy read. It's fun. I tried to make it fun so that when parents read along, it's meant so that, you know, parents and child can sit together and have fun to read, that it's exciting for both of them. They're getting the images, they're hearing it, and the parents are having fun reading it to them because of the way it flows.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned you going to the playground and just kind of being carefree and freestyling it and meeting new kids. I think, now you and I are very different generations. I'm almost 100, but I think that you and your peers were probably the last generation of kids to experience it, that whole, like, you know, you wake up in the morning in the summertime and your parents say, go out and play and come back home when the streetlights come on.
Right.
That doesn't happen these days. You know, kids' lives are so programmed. You know, everybody's in an after-school program, a before-school program, summer camp. They always have an adult around that's organizing things. I feel bad for kids. Now we did an awful lot of dumb stuff when I was a kid, and it would have been good to avoid some of that stuff. I have some scars that I probably wouldn't have if there was a older person around to keep me from making mistakes. But boy, you learn so much when you're out there, and you kind of had to deal with things on your own.
I think you're absolutely right. My parents, Hartford at some point wasn't the best place, but you find good places where you can see the parents are involved and they want their kids to socialize. And it's also a breather for the parents where they can observe from far and say, you know what, they can burn themselves out, learn to socialize. We're not going to hold their hand. They're going to figure it out. You look at today, there's a lot of things competing, in regards to like the kids and their attention and stuff like that. And you don't see, you go to a playground and they're not as full as they used to be, I think this book in particular opens the parents' eyes about those times where it was good to just go out to a playground and let your kids interact with random other kids. The age span varied. We're talking about some kids were like 5 and then there was 13-year-olds there, but they all got together and there was a diverse group of children just having fun. And in this book, I do have, it's primarily animal based, and there's going to be different animals there having fun with Freddie. And that's I didn't want to include races per se, but have a depiction of different types of people, or in this case, children interacting with each other and having a blast at the same time.
Great. What was the inspiration to become a children's author?
I had an inspiration years ago when I was younger. I mean, I know I'm not that old. I'm only 38. But in my 20s, I did have an idea of wanting to do this. I like to draw as a hobby, and my wife kind of encouraged that over time. I used to just do strict pencil and paper, really old school. And then my wife had questions. What about this? Did you think about oil paints? What about it just kept escalating, and my art style and even my demeanor, I don't know if you know Bob Ross. That goes a little bit way back. Oh, yeah. So I love that guy. I'm talking about I would play it, and I would just be like, man, he's so great at, starting from nothing and making it something. Uh-huh. And my drawings were kind of like that, very creative, just either wilderness or just a creative style of something out of the ordinary, something that may not exist. And when I wanted to do with that, I was also good at creative writing from school. Uh-huh. Back then writing was important, so you practiced, and creative writing was good for the kids to practice and get their creative juices flowing. So when I was in school, the teachers really pushed the writing portion. I was already naturally drawing, and then I wanted to tie them together. And in the beginning, it was just for fun. And then I became a father and things changed. It became less about fun, but trying to be impactful, not only towards my daughters, but also to other children. So things change once you have kids. Your perspective and priorities obviously do change. And I had it in the back burner, and my wife was like, hey, if you're really interested, now may be the time, because they're getting older, and what a better thing to write a book they don't even know you wrote it for that situation or for them, and they're going to read it, they're going to love it, and they'll never know that dad made it until they get to an age where they understand, who's this by, and oh, that's you, Dad. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. I made that, So heavily inspired by the young me with aspirations to do something with it, and then the father me saying, you know what, let's get this done and get it out there so that not only your children can enjoy it, but parents and children besides you guys can enjoy it,
Yeah, and don't forget to give credit to that beautiful wife. Oh,
absolutely. She's definitely the person that motivates me from back then all the way up till now. She's very encouraging. I went from pencil and paper and then Bob Ross, oil paints, and then she pushed digital art on me, saying, hey, why don't you try digital art? And at first I was uncomfortable with it because it's not the same, There's hand-eye coordination that needs to be there because it's not like there's no friction involved or a very minimal amount of it. And I eventually got the hang of it, and there's some sentimental value to it as well. not many people have that significant other that encourages your small ideas, and then it becomes a little bit more than just a small idea. So I'm grateful.
Yeah. You're talking about doing landscapes. Devin and I were talking about the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, and he has a connection to a beautiful part of the island called Aguadilla. And if you drive from San Juan to Aguadilla, along the Route 2 that goes all the way around the island, there's a point where you kind of go up a hill. And when you get to the top of the hill, you see nothing but sky. And then as you turn, you look down, and then you're looking down on a beach that it is the most spectacular view. The first time we drove around it, it took my breath away. And you have to go down and get a picture of that as you're going from San Juan to Aguadilla, Route 2, that as you're cresting, just that picture. There's the lovely beach, and then there's a tunnel that goes through takes you to another. It's just great. What a thing for you to paint. You would have so much fun.
Yeah, I definitely can picture myself doing that. I've done a couple oil paints for relatives, and they just loved, obviously it's technical, but in Freddy the Frog, I kind of try to incorporate that too. The images are very vibrant. I think that's one of the things that I really attach to with like Bob Ross, or just any kind of scenic routes that I've encountered, is how vibrant and beautiful things can actually look, naturally. In Connecticut, in the fall, the leaves change color, and the mixture of the leaves, it looks fantastic. And then in the summer, you have the vibrant greens, before they even get to that point. And in Freddy the Frog, that was one of the biggest thing. I wasn't just going to write a story. I wanted something that was very vibrant in color. Just in case you look at the cover and you can see, the greens are very green, the blues, but they're a little bit darker blues because of, I wanted to show texturing in the clothes, but overall everything is a vivid, I would say vivid scale. That's the best way. And everything's supposed to be bright and inviting, and encourages that, the sceneries, that I put out there are going to be exciting to look at, because you're going to sit there like, wow, man, did he draw all this? It looks great. There's a sunset in the book, and I try not to make it so cartoony and try to display some realism to it, but I'm just trying to get that attraction that you're like, wow, I can see that being a real scene out there if someone was taking photos, but then translated into a cartoon illustration. So I did both, and the play with words kind of encourages that light, lifted attitude.
So I have to ask you, are you an illustrator who writes, or are you an author who illustrates?
That's I would say my passion first would be an illustrator who writes. An illustrator who writes. I do like to draw more on my spare time than write, but I do find it, because I'm biased towards that, it is exciting to write something and getting it to flow and matching up with the images I want to portray.
That's great. That's fantastic. I'm curious now that I know Freddie's just out there for a couple of months and you're still marketing it and working hard, but have you started working on book 2?
Yeah, I actually did. It's going to be the book. It's going to be a series. The series, I have named it Friendimals. I'm trying to be clever with the words, so it's a bunch of animals who are friends. The words are mashed together, but I do have an idea for book 2, and it's gonna every book introduces, I want to say background characters, and then I will pick one of those background characters to have their own storyline. So everything's gonna be in one universe with that uplifting feeling, and every character is gonna have their own either set of problems or challenges that you'll just read along and have fun with.
Excellent. Well, I just had an interview with a phenomenal author of middle grade novels. Let me make sure I have his name right. His James Ponte, and he is talking. He's created a couple of series, and just like you, he creates characters. It's like a team of characters. And in each book, you know, there's the focus on one character, but the other characters also have their own arc. So you might want to take a listen to that and just talk his process. He's been a very successful author, and it sounds like you guys are thinking kind of in the same directions.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. That's pretty much exactly where I'm headed. I eventually want to tie in to create, you know, the group. You know, it's almost like getting the band together and creating maybe a one last book of their excitement of being together and what they're going to accomplish in that book primarily. But in the meantime, they're going to go through their own side stories. This story was a playful story. It was meant for engagement so that, you know, the parents and the kids can have fun with it. The other books, I think my attitude is going to be maybe every other book be more of learning focused. So the next book will primarily focus on teaching like the numbers. But as they learn the numbers, there's going to be a nice rhythm of words that flows and lets the character develop, and the kids will be like, oh, I get that. Okay. And there's going to be some repetitiveness. So obviously repetition for number learning is important,
Sure.
but I'm trying to incorporate more learning rather than just playful. But I'll go back and forth. My idea is to go back and forth and introduce the characters that way too.
You mentioned that the book is a rhyming picture book, and I'm really happy that you are mindful of the rhythm and the meter. That's so important in rhyming books. Was that something that was difficult for you to master?
I would like to say yes and no, if that's possible. So,
if you want.
At certain points, I would say they flow naturally. You know, you say it, and your mind kind of just fits the next sentence, and it works. And you're like, yes, that's what I want to say. And then there's certain instances where you get the first half, but the second half isn't really coming. So you're kind of working at it, finding out what words work. Now, there's also a complexity of syllables. You know, you're trying to get the syllables to match up so that it doesn't sound weird rolling off the tongue. I did go to my education primarily was through a magnet school where they integrated like Shakespeare and like Shakespeare theory. So there is some method to the madness as far as how many syllables I integrate in each page. Kind of Shakespearean, because he had his own way with how he gave off his poetry. So some of this stuff is inspired by my education background of what I've learned and been exposed to. But it is fun, and I've been exposed to that kind of poetry before. So the creative process can be easy at times, and then like anything else, almost like writer's block, you get the first half done, and then you're like, the second half isn't working quite well. And then I'll just skip and go to the illustration, and I'll go back to the words, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's a good strategy, because sometimes if you're just sitting there banging your head against the wall trying to get a phrase to work, that can be very difficult. But if you get up and you take a walk around the block sometimes, or as you were mentioning, get up and work on an illustration, it could come to you. You take that pressure off your brain and just kind of relax, and your brain sits back and says, yeah, how about this?
Right. I think you're right on the nose with that, because I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Clark, and his attitude was, when you can't figure it out, sleep on it. Give it some time, and it'll come to you the next day. And so I kind of remember these teachings from way back when, with people with good wisdom, just helping me out with creative writing and stuff like that. So I kind of incorporate what I've been taught way back in high school and early college, to help me out a little bit to get through the process. So it was fun. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. It's challenging, just like anything. Nothing's really easy in life. As you age, you notice something that may take not long at all of a sudden blows up to this ginormous thing where it takes 4 hours, 5 hours. So it's a learning process, and you just go with it.
Yeah. Has Mr. Clark had a chance to look at Freddie the Frog yet?
No, he hasn't. Unfortunately, he passed years ago. So, I would have loved to have shared it with him when that time came. There's a few people that still don't know that I've published a book yet, that eventually I'll get to and say, hey, I'd like you to take a look at this. Thank you for being there and educating me. And it helped out. It came back years down the road. Eventually I incorporated what I learned from you.
Yeah. Well, as the husband of a woman who taught in the Boston Public Schools for 34 years, I know those teachers would be very grateful to hear those words.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Having, again, you have children and you realize what's important and what's not important, and priorities change. I learned to be more mindful. That's part of the maturity aspect, being more mindful on how you approach things and how to get things done, and also be thankful at the same time. When you're young, you take on the world and nothing really matters, as long as you're getting what you need. But as I've, maturity kicked in, children kind of enlightened me on, things can be different and approach is different. And I'm more mindful now than I used to be, and more grateful. I give much respect, to your wife on teaching. It's a very difficult job, I'm aware. Both my parents did work in the school system. My mother just retired from the school system. And she was an executive for an elementary school, and she was very involved with the children, because parents and children and the teachers, she was involved with making sure things always lined up. And I can see, when things go awry or something doesn't go necessarily as planned, how hectic it can be. Working with kids is challenging, so I could just imagine trying to do a curriculum with children and dealing with, principle and priority. I know it can be a lot. So I'm very grateful for teachers. I'm mindful it's a hard job, but I'm grateful that such things do exist.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, you mentioned that your kids probably don't realize that you're an author yet, and they will at some point. What about your wife, that woman who pushed you and encouraged you? What was her reaction when you opened up that first author's copy of your book?
Yeah, she was very proud and happy. She said, "Congrats, babe," and I was excited. Even with the awards, it's that jolt of excitement that it's a confirmation that it's not. A lot of people naturally you tend to be pessimistic on things. Some people, the confidence isn't there when you do things for the first time, and it's good to see you published a book, something you had in the back burners for a while, and I can tell she's excited that I finally did it, and then I can tell she's also proud that someone else appreciates the amount of effort and time I put in to writing a book and illustrating it too, and then putting it out there, because you're kind of vulnerable when you put your work out there, to being criticized by somebody that doesn't know you. And not that nothing's ever perfect, but it's great for someone to say, what, this is a good first shot. This is a good first time of you doing this, and keep at it. You're doing great.
Excellent. Hey, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Freddie the Frog and find out more about you.
Yeah, so you can find Freddie the Frog on Amazon. It's under D.L. Torres if you have to search it through the author. It's $9.99 on Amazon. You can get it 2 days delivery with Amazon Prime. And you can follow me on Play Pages LLC on Facebook and Instagram.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Freddie the Frog. It's a debut picture book from our guest, the author and illustrator, Devin Torres. Hey, Devin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love, leaving a 5-star review, and also please be sure to subscribe to the show. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram, at Juggly Magic on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Andrew Keenan-Bolger. Please be sure to check out Limelight. And Devin Torres. Please be sure to check out Freddie the Frog. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Sotalaro. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. You are giving so much love and support to the kids in your life. And you're also making the world a better, kinder, more caring place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.